Our lesson this morning is the Peter principle. Now, I don't want you to get this mixed up with the Apostle Peter because it has nothing to do with him, even though we've been talking about Peter with the foot washing incident, and I'm going to mention him again today. But this one has to do with a man by the name of Lawrence F. Peters. And it's an economic principle. It's a principle that is used in work models, how that they get people to get more production out of them. And what it says is that an employee will rise to his or her best level. And there's some other parameters around that if you give them the right tools and the right training and those kinds of things. That they will do their best because they really want to keep their job. And it goes on to say, but if you promote them above their basic level, they will be incompetent in what you give them to do. So this principle is one that the disciples showed on the night when Jesus washed their feet. And I want to show that to you. I want to make an application in our lives today. So it's really not going to be on that foot washing stuff, even though we're going to mention it. So let's start with Peter's dumb question. Excuse my using the word dumb, okay? Because I think that's the only way to explain it. I could have said he's blonde, but that would have been making people mad too, you know. So let me try to be politically correct and just use that word dumb that I don't like to use. But Jesus had the towel in his hand, and he had it girded around him, the Bible says. And he had the basin of water, and he had the jug of water. And possibly he had been washing some other people's feet already. And he slides over. Peter's laying there by the table. He slides over, and he gets ready to wash Peter's feet. And Peter says, "Are you going to wash my feet?" Well, Peter, what do you think he's got the towel, the basin, and the pitcher for? Peter, what have you just seen him do? And now he slid over to you, and Peter says, "Are you going to wash my feet?" That's just not real bright. Well, let's give Peter some slack, okay? It could just maybe be, and we can guess some things that are going through his mind. He thought he was able to wash his own feet. Now that's important in this lesson because have you ever tried to help somebody that's a Christian and they say, "Oh, I don't need that." And you know good and well they need that. They're just telling a story. But maybe it's pride in their life that keeps them from accepting the help of the hand that's extended to them. Maybe there's a lot of different things. I don't need that. I can do it myself. Maybe he didn't think Jesus should wash his feet. Now, wait a minute, Lord. I've already confessed you're the Son of God. I know you're God come in the flesh, and you're wanting to wash my feet. No, let me wash your feet. And sometimes we think God doesn't want to do this for me, and he really does. And you see the blessings that he's given to you, and you know he's good. And you know you're special in his sight because of the things he's done for you in your life. Or maybe it was Peter says, "I want to be humble before the others. Now, Lord, you know who I am. I'm your servant. Let me wash your feet." Well, whatever was going through his mind, he came out with that kind of crazy question, or I don't know, you may say dumb. But I think we're like that. I think we fit that scenario exactly. We think we're self-sufficient. I don't need you. I do. I don't need any help. I do. I don't need any encouragement. I do. And you can just go on and on of things that Christians say when you know it's just not right. Because you see, we all have dirty feet. Every single one of us. And the Lord is waiting to wash our feet, to cleanse us up. And we don't need to refuse him. Because you remember what he said? Peter, if I don't wash your feet, you're not mine. And if we can't serve one another, if we refuse the service of one another, isn't it about the same as cutting off and saying, I don't need you, I can be my own island out here? And every one of us need us. Because you see, only God can make us what we ought to be. Now here comes the Peter principle. Mr. Lawrence Peter's principle says you can get better only to a point. Let's see, I might be strong and I can do up to a point, and then whatever it is too heavy for me or too big for me. I might be wealthy and I don't need any help, but to a point, it gets to the point where your funds run out. I mean, it could get awful. It might be that you can say, well, I've got this ability, this talent, or this training, or whatever it is. Well, there comes to a point that I can put a Band-Aid on a sore, but I can't do brain surgery. You know, it's just too much, too big. Well, what are we going to do at that point? We get caught up in that pride level thing, and we don't do like we ought to do. So I'm going to bring you a couple of Old Testament examples, and I want you to see this principle at work in their lives, and I want you to see how it can apply to us. The first one is Moses. And Moses is a fugitive from Egypt. I mean, he's murdered this guy over there, and he goes over into the land of Midian. He gets away from Egypt, away from the threats of his being caught. He goes over there, he marries this girl, and he becomes a shepherd. And he's happy. And he's taking his sheep or cattle or whatever they were from one place to another, getting them to graze and getting them fat. But then something happens. God appeared to him in a burning bush. Things change. Moses was happy, doing his job well as a shepherd. But now God says, I want you to go and get my people out of Egypt. So Moses has those dumb thoughts, using that word again. Who am I, Lord? Who am I to go over there and stand before Pharaoh and bring your people out of Egypt? Now let's see. I'm not very much. I'm just a shepherd, Lord. And Lord, to Pharaoh, he's the strongest king in all the world, and I'm going to stand before him, a shepherd? Hey, Lord, your people are not going to listen to me. Who am I? And the God of the universe has handpicked Moses. It's you I want to do this. Moses is not finished with dumbness. He says, who will I say sent me? What credentials? What authority? How in the world am I going to go and get those people to follow after me? To get Pharaoh to let them go? Tell him I am sent you. That doesn't mean anything to you and me. I mean, I am standing here. I am breathing. Tell him I am sent you. And that literally means the one who is forever there, forever present, forever powerful. It has to do with a time span of never ending or never beginning. It has to do with authority. It has to do with creation. Anything you want to think about. I am is a designation. Tell them I am sent you. Well, Lord, you know I can't speak. Who made your mouth? And if you think you can't speak, guess what? I'm going to send your brother Aaron to help you. Where Moses was slack, God filled in. And so Exodus chapter 3, verse 10 says, I will be with thee, and this shall be a token unto thee that I have sent thee. When thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt, ye shall serve God upon this mountain. Now I want you to look at this passage with me, because God says, I'm going to give you a charm, a token. I'm going to give you a coin, or I'm going to give you a medal, or I'm going to give you a sign, whatever you want to call that thing. I'm going to show you, Moses, that I sent you. Now let me think. When Moses went over there, he couldn't do a thing. But God, through him, did 10 plagues on Egypt. Moses was powerful. He couldn't do anything, but he walked up to that sea, held that rod out, and guess what? The sea parted, and they went across on dry ground. The army of Pharaoh followed them. Been following for days, and there was a pillar of fire that separated between them and Israel. The cloud led them by day to show them where they are to go. Moses couldn't do anything. He was just like he said. He couldn't speak. He was just a shepherd. He wasn't anything to stand before anybody. And God took Moses and brought the people out. And when you bring them out, Moses, you're going to come to this mountain and you're going to serve God. Or let me put it in Henry County language. You're going to come and you're going to worship. What is the token that you today are being led by God and that God is with you? Because this morning you're here and you're worshiping. And you know what the Bible in Hebrews 12 calls the church? The mountain of God. And you have come to the mountain. And this is your token that God is here and He's present and He's in you. This is your token that you can't do it on your own. You've risen to the highest level you can get and you're not going any higher, but God is bringing you on. This is your token of the blessings of God. Thank you, God. Move on to Joshua. In Joshua chapter 1, verse 5, he says, as I was with Moses, I will be with thee. Okay, Lord, but those people, they're not going to listen to me like they listened to Moses. No. They're not going to hear me. And so God says in Joshua chapter 3, verse 7, and the Lord said unto Joshua, this day will I begin to magnify thee in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that I was with as I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. Guess what? He did. And the people of Israel, they listened to Joshua just like they did with Moses. Now that's 2 Old Testament examples of God being with them. You can read it, you understand it. But what does that mean? Who's God with today? I mean, what about me? That's where this is. What about me? Well, you see, once I have done all I can do. See those 2 big eyes in there? Once I have done all I can do. then it's what Isaiah said in Isaiah 64, verse 6. All our righteousnesses are as filthy rags. Now, Henry County language says, no matter what you do in service to God on your own volition, on your own strength, on your own power, no matter what you do, it's not worth anything. It's not worth anything. Well, is God with me today or not? He was with Israel. They were his people, his chosen people. And God was with them. Let's bring it to the New Testament. Galatians chapter 3, verse 29 says, and if you be Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. Let me put that in Henry County language again for you. You're a Jew. You're a spiritual Jew. Paul said so again in Romans. You have the promises of God, of his blessings, and of his presence, just like they did. So I want to go down to Acts chapter 18. Then spake the Lord to Paul in the night in a vision, or by a vision, be not afraid, but speak and hold thy peace. For I am with thee, and no man shall set on thee to hurt thee, for I have much people in this city. Now, on one hand, I've got the presence of God, and that's a good lesson. That's not what the lesson's about. The lesson's about that presence of God helping me. And here you see Paul is told by the Lord, don't be afraid. I'm going to take care of you. Paul couldn't do it by himself. He couldn't protect himself from his enemies. And in fact, they tried to stone him one time. Remember that? And they were after him, and he was let down the wall at night, and all kinds of things that happened to him. And he listed those for us in the letter to the Corinthians. But what happened? I am with thee. Christian, you and I need to take that same vocabulary. God is with us. And what we do, we get up to the level in which we can progress. We can't go any higher. And God takes care of the rest of it. God takes care of the rest of it. Here's the passage I've used with you before. Let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as you have. For he has said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. I've used this over and over and over again because I don't want you to forget it. I've brought you through the Old Testament where he's been with those people. And I've taken you now into the New Testament where he has promised Paul, I'll be with you. And you say, but he's an apostle. He's not just me. But this passage, Hebrews 13:5, is not written to an apostle. It's not talking about what he's going to do with those apostles. This is written to the general church. And this is telling what God's going to do with you as an individual Christian. And that needs to be in our vocabulary. We shouldn't expect anything else out of our God. So therefore, and I got this as a closure. Don't pick up your psalm books yet. This is a long closure. This is where the lesson really starts. All of that stuff has been set up. This is where it really starts. God says through the Apostle Paul to the Philippian church, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. I can only by Christ. I want to show you how this works. 6 verses later, verse 19. But my God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory by Jesus Christ. That says I can do all things through Christ because God's going to be helping me. I can do all things through Christ because God's going to take me and make me do more than I'm able to do. I can't do it on my own, but with God, I can do whatever He wants me to do. And Christian, we need to give God credit. We need to give Him credit. I want to show you this from the book of Acts. About 2 years ago, I guess it was now, we studied the book of Acts in this pulpit. I have paraphrased these verses. From Attalia, they sailed back to Antioch, where they had been committed to the grace of God for the work they had now completed. Antioch was a place where Paul launched all 3 of his missionary journeys. And so what he's doing in this Acts 14, he's just going back to report. You know, like we had David French to come here from Africa telling us how the African work was going. Well, this is Paul doing exactly the same thing. Notice that it was in Antioch that he had committed himself not to do his work, but to do the grace of God. It is in Antioch that he decided he was going to go and complete this work. Let's read verse 27. On arriving there, they gathered the church together and reported all that God had done through them and how He had opened the door of faith to the Gentiles. When we studied the book of Acts, do you remember I said the Acts of the Apostles probably is not a good name for that book? Because it would be better if you talked about the acts of God through the apostles. Well, here it is. Here's one of the verses where I got that idea from. All that God had done. And so you trace those missionary journeys of Paul and you think, boy, he did a good job preaching here. He did this, converted all these. No, it wasn't Paul. Paul was just the tool that God was using. Because Paul didn't have that ability. Paul didn't have the strength. Paul didn't have the finances. Paul didn't have anything to do with this. God sent him, and through him, he worked. Let's go to Acts chapter 15, verses 3 through 4. Verse 3 says, and they caused great joy unto all the brethren when they arrived. And when they were come to Jerusalem, they were received of the church and the apostles and elders. And they declared all things that God had done with them. It just sickens my stomach to read at the back part of the Gospel Advocate where preachers say, I went over to so-and-so and I preached blah, blah, blah sermons and we had so many to respond. I baptized, I did. That's not biblical. This is what's biblical. God did this through me. And whenever we find something that needs to be done, and whenever we find something that we can help with, that is a work for God, and we do it, do not take credit for it, but give it to where it belongs, that God has used you, He's allowed you, He's helped you, He's been with you. That's the biblical language. So I want you to leave here this morning thinking some things. I want you to think about, what has God done with me today, yesterday, a week, a month, a year? What has God been doing in my life? Look for Him. Because people, you are a Christian and you have God in you. What have I done that only His Spirit could have caused? Have you ever thought, I really need to do X, Y, Z, and then you go do it, and a day later, a week later, a year later, you find, wow, if I hadn't done that, it would have been terrible. Give God credit. Because He saw fit to work your life so that your mind worked so that it was just right for Him. It was the thing that needed to be done. His Spirit in you at work, changing your life and causing you to love people and to show God to them. If God has been with man since the beginning, and we've looked through and seen that even back to the Garden of Eden, God has, can I look at my life and see He's really with me? I mean, He's promised. We read the scripture. He's promised to. But can I look in here and can I say, I know by these things happening and the way things lined up, that only God could do that. He really is with me. Well, now that I have considered the presence of God, I got it also this morning, for this lesson's sake, consider that Peter principle. I'm only going to go as high as I can go, and I'm not going any further. And a Christian adds, until God gets in it. And then I can do whatever He wants me to do with the resources that He supplies. If you can buy into that, then I got some more questions for you. Does it change how you see the world? If you know God's going to be there with you and going to help you do what needs to be done, what He wants to do, wants done according to His will, does that not change how you view any problem that you have in this life? Anything you come across in this life? That you can trust Him to do what's the very best? Does it change the way you think about maybe planning to do something or seeing something that you want to do, but you maybe know God doesn't want me to do this and He can't be with me if I go into sin, so I'm going to stay out of that. I'm going to do that which is right. Change my mind, Lord. Does it change what I do? Does it change what kind of associations I keep and what kind of activities I engage in? If I know God is with me and I know He'll only help me in the good stuff. Does it give me a hunger and a thirst for righteousness? Jesus says that those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, they shall be filled. And the word filled there is more than enough, overflowing. It's not just up to the little line on your cup that says full. You know, you go to the gas station sometimes and you pump that gas and that thing cuts off when it gets full. And what do? You keep trying to fill it in. Well, let me tell you, with today's cars, people, you don't need to do that. That can cost you big money. Because you see, your car has a little bladder in there to take care of the fumes. And if you fill that with gasoline, there's no place for those fumes to go but pop that bladder. And that's about $1,000 fix. So you stop that at the gas pumps. You'll be glad you did. Do I hunger and thirst, though? Lord, fill me, because I know what my abilities are and what my abilities are not. I know in this life I'm weak and I make mistakes and I do not serve you properly all the time. Lord, I know that, and I need your presence with me, and let me see that. Let me understand that. And let me project that. Because as I'm filled with you, I want to show that to a world that's lost and dying and cannot see their way. Help me, Lord. Because you see, I've reached my level, and I can't get any better without you. Amen.